I want to talk about something a lot of people struggle with but don't always say it out loud, and that's why does it seem so easy for everyone else to make and keep friends, and it's so hard for me? Well, if you've ever felt like connection is something other people just get, like they were handed a manual you somehow missed, this conversation is for you. And I want to start by saying this clearly. Difficulty forming and keeping connections is not a character flaw. It's usually a pattern, and patterns have roots. We learn relationships early and we don't realize it. Our early attachment experiences, how caregivers responded to us, shape how we approach relationships decades later. Not consciously, not dramatically, but subtly. If your emotions were welcomed and soothed consistently, you likely learned people are safe, I can reach for them. But if love felt unpredictable, warm one day, distant the next, you may have learned connection can disappear. I need to work hard to keep it. And if closeness felt intrusive, critical, or overwhelming, you might have learned it's safer not to need too much. Now, these early blueprints often show up in adulthood as overthinking tests, pulling away when things get close, feeling clingy and then feeling ashamed of it, or convincing yourself you don't really need anyone. You're not failing at connection, you're repeating what once kept you emotionally safe. The nervous system plays a bigger role than you think. Connection isn't just emotional, it's biological. There's a theory called polyvagal theory that suggests we connect best when our nervous system feels safe. When we're regulated, we can make eye contact, use warm tone, read facial clues. But if your system is even slightly in fight or flight mode, if it's anxious, scanning, guarded, then connection becomes harder. You may find yourself overanalyzing, struggling to relax in conversation, feeling drained after socializing, or even shutting down completely. Loneliness doesn't just feel bad emotionally, it actually activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Your brain treats social rejection similarly to physical injury. So if you've experienced rejection, bullying, exclusion, or betrayal, your brain remembers. It may become hyper alert in social settings, not because you're awkward, because it's protecting you. And there's another huge factor that comes into play. Some people often mask. Now, masking is when you adjust your personality, tone, humour, interests, even your body language to fit the room. Now, we've all done this to some degree. It's part of being socially aware. But if you're constantly performing a slightly edited version of yourself, then two things happen. You get exhausted, and people connect with the version of you that isn't fully real. And that creates a subtle, painful loneliness. You can't feel fully known if you're not fully visible. Some people who struggle with long-term friendships aren't bad at connecting. They're very good at adapting, but adaptation doesn't equal intimacy. Intimacy requires risk, and risk feels unsafe if your system equates vulnerability with rejection. A lot of individuals that struggle to maintain relationships or make friends have one of two core fears. I'm too much, or I'm not enough. I'm too sensitive, I'm too intense, too quiet, too boring, or too awkward. Now, these beliefs shape behavior in powerful ways. If you believe you're too much, you shrink. If you believe you're not enough, you overcompensate. And either way, you're not showing up neutrally. You're compensating. And relationships built on conversation are hard to sustain because eventually the real you wants air. Social media has changed the game. The average person today has access to more people digitally than humans did for most of history. And yet, rates of reported loneliness have increased significantly in the past decade. Well, how's that? Well, one reason is something psychologists refer to as ambient intimacy. You see people's lives constantly, their wins, their parties, their friendships, without actually being part of them. And your brain interprets that as social comparison. And comparison quietly erodes confidence. It creates the illusion that everyone else is effortlessly connected, but they're not. You're just seeing their highlight reels. Here's something hopeful. Some people weren't taught relationship skills, conflict resolution, emotional expression, or how to repair after disagreement. The biggest predictor of long-term relationship success isn't avoiding conflict, it's repair. The ability to say, hey, I think I misunderstood you, or I'm sorry that came out wrong. If you didn't see repair modeled growing up, conflict can feel catastrophic, so you avoid it, or you overreact to it. And friendships quietly fade because small ruptures never get addressed. That's not destiny, that's a learnable skill gap. For some people, the hardest part isn't making connections. It's relying on them. Needing someone means giving them power to disappoint you. And if you've been deeply disappointed before, your system may say never again. So you keep friendships surface level. Or you're the strong one, or the helper, or the independent one who doesn't ask for too much. But closeness requires mutual need. And that's vulnerable. So what helps? If you recognize yourself in any of this, I want you to hear this next part slowly. Struggling with connection doesn't mean you're unlovable. It usually means your protective strategies are very strong, and those strategies made sense at one time. The shift doesn't start with be more outgoing. It starts with safety, small, tolerable risks, sharing an honest opinion, letting a text sit without over-editing it, saying that hurt instead of disappearing. Connection builds through repetition of safe enough experiences. Your nervous system updates through evidence. And here's one final interesting fact. Studies show that people consistently underestimate how much others like them after conversation. It's called the liking gap. You probably come across warmer and more interesting than you think. Your inner critic just doesn't report that data accurately. If forming and keeping relationships has felt hard for you, I don't see someone flawed. I see someone whose system is cautious. And cautious systems soften with consistency, not force. You don't need to become someone else to connect. You just need environments where your real self is safe. And that may take time, but it is possible. It's always possible.